Ever notice how some people seem to collect victim cards like their loyalty points, flashing a perpetual "I'm the one who suffers" badge whenever the spotlight turns their way? It's as if playing the victim has become a currency, paying out in sympathy, attention, and even hidden power. What if I told you that behind those tear-filled pleas lies a well-crafted psychological strategy, one that can turn genuine compassion into a winning hand? Today we're diving deep into the hidden mechanics of victimhood, uncovering why the brain rushes to offer empathy and how that rush can be hijacked for personal gain. I'm your guide through this maze of mind and motive, a lifelong student of human behavior who has spent countless hours untangling why we act the way we do when pain meets praise. In the next 10 minutes, we'll unravel 3 core mental tricks that transform suffering into a tool, explore how they're weaponized in everyday life, and learn practical ways to spot the traps before they pull you in. By the end, you'll have a clear map of the empathy shortcut, the moral licensing effect, and the social proof pull that together create the victim mindset. First, let's talk about the empathy shortcut, a fast-track response wired into our brains long before modern civilization. Imagine an early tribe huddled around a fire. Spotting a wounded member meant the whole group had to decide instantly whether to rally resources or retreat. That split-second judgment relied on what psychologists call System 1, thinking, an automatic, intuitive process that bypasses deliberate analysis. When we see someone labeled as a victim, our System 1 kicks in, flooding us with a quick surge of sympathy, because evolution taught us that caring for the vulnerable helped the group survive. Science backs this intuition. Studies have shown that when a person is framed as a victim, observers rate them as less responsible for their situation, even when the facts are identical. This victim halo creates a bias where the mere label skews our moral calculus, leading us to grant them the benefit of the doubt and, often, extra support. Think about a coworker who shares a personal hardship during a meeting.
Suddenly, the entire team floods them with encouragement, offers flexible deadlines,
and even overlooks recent performance dips, all because the narrative shifted to their suffering. The key takeaway here is that the empathy shortcut is a cognitive bias, a mental shortcut that can be hijacked. When someone learns that portraying themselves as a victim triggers this automatic compassion response, they can strategically deploy it to gain resources, attention, or leniency. Recognizing this bias lets you pause before the knee-jerk reaction, giving you space to assess whether the empathy you feel is truly warranted or being leveraged. Next, we move into the realm of moral licensing, the subtle psychological phenomenon where doing or appearing to do something noble grants us permission to act in self-interest later. Picture a person who publicly recounts a painful experience, painting themselves as a survivor. That confession earns them moral credit, a badge of virtue that the brain registers as good deed done. Once that credit is banked, the mind feels a reduced sense of guilt, opening the door to actions that might otherwise clash with their self-image. Research experiments have demonstrated this effect vividly. Participants who recalled a personal victim story later made choices that favored themselves over others, such as allocating more money to their own projects or endorsing policies that benefited their own group. The underlying mechanism is simple. The brain tags the victim identity as a moral shield, lowering the internal cost of later selfish moves. A real-world illustration can be seen in the story of a public figure who first released a heartfelt video describing past hardships, earning a wave of public empathy and support. Shortly after, the same individual announced a controversial business decision that sparked criticism. The prior victim narrative acted as a buffer, allowing the audience to overlook the inconsistency because the moral credit had already been cashed in. Being aware of moral licensing means watching for the pattern, an intense display of self-pity followed by a sudden claim of entitlement, such as, "After everything I've been through, I deserve this opportunity." When you spot that red flag, you can question whether the compassion being extended is being used as a license rather than a genuine response. Finally, let's consider the power of social proof and the formation of a victim identity that spreads like an echo chamber. When a person consistently presents themselves as a victim, they attract a community that reinforces that narrative, creating a feedback loop of validation. This collective endorsement amplifies the original claim, making it harder to challenge without appearing unsympathetic. The final piece of the puzzle ties back to the empathy shortcut and moral licensing, forming a three-part engine that drives the victim mindset: rapid compassion, moral credit, and communal reinforcement. Understanding how these gears interlock equips you with the tools to navigate conversations, workplace dynamics, and even online debates with greater clarity. What do you think about these mechanisms?
Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear your perspective.
When a person consistently presents themselves as a victim, they attract a community that reinforces that narrative, creating a feedback loop of validation. This collective endorsement amplifies the original claim, making it harder to challenge without appearing unsympathetic. The audience, eager to be the supportive ally, often doubles down on the story, sharing it, commenting, and even defending it against any critique. In this environment, the victim identity becomes a social badge, a symbol of moral superiority that the group proudly displays. The more the badge is worn, the more the individual feels entitled to demand resources, attention, or concessions, because the group has already invested emotional capital into the story. The three-part engine: rapid empathy, moral licensing, and communal reinforcement operates like a well-oiled machine. Each component feeds the others. The empathy shortcut supplies the immediate emotional fuel. Moral licensing converts that fuel into a sense of entitlement, and social proof spreads the fire, recruiting more supporters who keep the flames alive. Recognizing this interlocking system is the first step toward protecting yourself from being swept up in it. Whether you're navigating a workplace discussion, a family dispute, or an online debate, one practical strategy is to pause before offering unconditional sympathy. Ask yourself, is this person's claim of victimhood substantiated, or is it being used as a lever for something else? This isn't about becoming cynical. It's about applying a mental filter that separates genuine need from strategic self-interest. In practice, you might request concrete evidence, ask clarifying questions, or simply observe whether the narrative changes over time. Genuine victims often maintain consistency, while those leveraging the identity may shift the story to align with new goals. Another useful tool is to monitor the language of entitlement that often follows a victim narrative. Phrases that begin with, "after everything I've been through," or "because I've suffered," can signal the activation of moral licensing. When you hear such statements, it's healthy to gently probe, "What outcome are you hoping for?" or "How does this align with the support you've received?" By bringing the conversation back to tangible goals, you prevent the abstract moral credit from morphing into unchecked advantage. On a broader scale, cultivating a culture that values accountability alongside compassion can diminish the power of the victim engine. Encourage environments where people are praised for resilience and problem-solving, not just for expressing hardship. When a team celebrates individuals who turn adversity into constructive action, the incentive shifts from collecting sympathy points to demonstrating growth. This subtle redirection reduces the appeal of staying locked in a perpetual victim role. It's also important to be aware of your own susceptibility to the empathy shortcut. Our brains are wired to respond quickly to emotional cues, especially those that signal vulnerability. Training yourself to recognize when a story feels overly dramatic or when the emotional intensity seems disproportionate can help you stay grounded. Mindfulness practices, brief reflective pauses, or even a quick mental note, "I'm feeling an empathy response. Let me check the facts," can create the space needed to engage more rationally. If you find yourself on the receiving end of a victim narrative, setting clear boundaries is essential. A compassionate but firm response might look like, "I hear that you're going through a difficult time, and I'm willing to help with X, but I'm not comfortable with Y." This approach acknowledges the person's feelings without surrendering to manipulation. It also signals that empathy does not equal unlimited acquiescence. Finally, remember that the dynamics we've explored are not exclusive to any single demographic or ideology. Victimhood can be weaponized across politics, corporate hierarchies, interpersonal relationships, and even within families. By understanding the underlying psychology, you gain a versatile lens through which to evaluate many kinds of interactions. Whether you're a manager trying to maintain fairness, a friend seeking to support without being taken advantage of, or a viewer scrolling through social feeds, the principles remain the same. Identify the shortcut, watch for the licensing, and assess the community reinforcement. So what do you think? Have you ever noticed these patterns in your own life or in the media?
I'd love to hear your stories and observations in the comments below. Sharing examples helps us all become more aware and better equipped to navigate these subtle power plays.
If you found this deep dive useful, consider giving the video a thumbs up. It lets the algorithm know that content like this resonates with you. And if you're interested in more explorations of human behavior, feel free to subscribe and click the bell icon so you won't miss future episodes.
Your support fuels the channel and lets us keep bringing evidence-based insights to the table.
Thanks for watching. Stay curious. And remember, compassion is a powerful tool. But like any tool, it works best when we understand how it can be shaped and, when necessary, how to keep it from being misused.